Dynamic hip mobility. During the warm-up is a great time to focus on various ways for your students to move their hips. I know you've got some students that still want to bust a move on a dance floor, so this will help them. And also, opening up the top of the upper thigh, the hip flexors, is mandatory for every Silver and Fit class. So for Explore, Experience, and Excel, it's one of the areas that is mandatory to open dynamically during the warm-up. And the reason is because it's another area like the chest and the calves that are as commonly tight. And so by opening this, you'll get your students into better alignment, moving more efficiently, and at a reduced risk of injury. So we're going to start with our seated participants in the chair. So sitting in the chair, I want you to think, what muscle is tight right here? The hip flexors, right? They're contracted right here when you're lifting your legs up. So it's because of this seated position why so many people are really tight and inflexible in their hip flexors. So if you have students that have the ability to get up out of the chair, we want them up and out of the chair. But we also know that you have some students that need the chair-based programming, so any movement is better than none. So seated in the chair, we're going to look at different ways to move the hips. So we're going to start first with hip hikes. Now make sure your students' entire bottom is nice and secure on the chair. Let them know, maybe explain to them before they actually do the movement that they're going to be shifting slightly side to side, but we don't want them to shift and lift their entire bun off the chair. So it's just a little hip hike. So they are going to experience a weight shift. Again, we don't want any surprises. We don't want the bottom coming up and somebody falling off the side of the chair. Your students can even hold the chair like I'm doing right here. So we have hip hikes. We also have hip circles. So you can tell them, like a hula dancer, they're just going to do some circles in the chair. They can be really small. Hands can be on the thighs, or if they feel more confident, on the side. And if you circle one way, we're going to circle the opposite way. So doing those hip circles, and then coming center. And the bonus on that one, it's a little bit of abdominal and core work too. Now moving into opening the hip flexor, obviously right here, it's flexed. So we need to open up the front of the upper thigh. So you're going to have your students diagonally turn on the chair and make sure that they keep their body on the chair. We're going to drop one leg back, and then you're going to have them open the front of their hip. So we're just going to have them, cue them to take their hip towards you and release. Another way you can cue this is if you have them tighten their bottom, it actually helps open the front side. So if you tighten one side, there's a natural opening response on the opposite side. So it's just a very slight movement. They move their hip towards you and release. It's good to show a visual, so to take your hand and let everybody know where they should be feeling it, because your students may not know where their hip flexors are. So right here, and you would just repeat that on the opposite side. Now another hip mobility that we can do is a leg circle. So with your students' foot on the floor, and we want to make movements small when we're in the chair. Making the movement small will help keep their pelvis and their hips aligned. They can just simply make some circles and start loosening up that hip region. We circle one direction, we're going to reverse it, circling in the opposite direction. Obviously, we would repeat that on the opposite side. Moving on to the next progression, so your students that need light support on the chair, we're going to come up, and you can have your students either come to the side or completely behind the chair, wherever they're the most comfortable. And now they're standing. So right here, we're getting a little bit more length in the hip flexor. So it's nice if they can get up to get them up for this one. And it's also a good progression. If you have seated students, they can come up a little bit and they can go back down a little. So we're up tall, and we're going to start with just those hip hikes. So we're just going to shift side to side, and if they're comfortable, they are getting a little ankle mobility as well. The heels are coming up. Again, they've got that support. They've got that support on the chair, and then coming center. And with the feet hip width apart, a little bend in the knees, we can go back to that hula dancer, doing those hip circles, and then going the opposite direction. And then pausing center. Now opening up the hip flexor, they have light support by the side. You're going to have them step back so they're on the toe. And be careful that they're not stepping back too far. So it's just a small step back. They're nice and tall. Have them drop their body straight down a little bit and then take their hip towards you. So they feel the opening right here. And you can flow through that. So they take their hip towards you and release. Towards you and release. And again, using that visual cue so that they know where they should be feeling this. It's an opening sensation. We never want to go to pain or to any discomfort, just feeling opening in the upper part of the top of the thigh. Now stepping together, we have those circles. So you want to take the outside leg, point the toe, and do a little circle back, and then to the front. So depending on your students and their range of motion, the circle could be really small. It could also be a little bit bigger. They could even add a little balance component and just really keep that toe very, very lightly on the ground. Now for your freestanding students, we lose the chair. There's no chair in the Excel class or experience. We can come feet shoulder width apart, and we can go to that weight shift. But now maybe you want to add some arms and get a little more integrated right here. And if you want to make it more athletic, add jump rope arms. And you're getting the added benefit of shoulder mobility, going forward and backwards. If you have a group that likes to dance, add in the swim arms or the hitchhiker. So we're getting dynamic movement through the hips. Also, we're getting that weight shift here. And this weight shift is excellent to have your students respond to center of gravity changes. And they need to have that nice response, that stabilization response to help prevent falls. So that's your hip hikes. We got the hula dancer, circling the opposite direction, or you can simply just call those hip circles. And we have the hip flexor. So freestanding, we just take one leg back again, not too far, drop straight down, have your students take the hips towards you, light support. So we always have a little bit of support. Now right here, you may want to add in some dynamic breaths. So we inhale, open the hip, exhale, relax down. Inhale, open the hip, or just get a nice reach up and relax down. And then coming in, we have the leg circles. So without the chair, there's going to be much more of a stabilization and balance component. So your students, if they're freestanding, they should be steady on one foot. So we're going to have them point their toe and do those circles, forward and back. And then maybe for your more advanced students, they can actually pick that leg up, bring it back, and then to the front. Think of getting in and out of the car. And you would repeat all of those exercises on the opposite side. So those are some variations on how we can really open up and the hip flexors and add a little mobility to the hip region.